I'm Claire, a 28-year-old senior interior designer living in Portland, Oregon. My older sister Melissa is 31 and runs a boutique event planning company that's always chasing the next big thing. We've been different since we were kids. She thrives on bold moves and loud ideas, while I plan every step and double-check the details. That contrast finally collided one night at a family dinner, setting everything else in motion. Our parents were celebrating their wedding anniversary, so we met at a cozy restaurant downtown. Between toasts and dessert, Melissa leaned forward with a sparkle in her eyes and announced she'd found a can't-miss investment. She described a lakeside property she wanted to turn into a luxury cabin retreat. Her voice carried across the table as she laid out promises of quick profits and exclusive bookings. I could tell she'd been rehearsing the pitch. She turned to me and insisted I should join her, saying it was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. The idea was that I'd liquidate the condo savings I'd built over years of careful planning. I explained those savings were already set aside for a downtown condo renovation I'd been dreaming about since college. Melissa waved that off and said the condo could wait, that I'd regret letting this opportunity slip by. The conversation tightened. She teased me for being overly cautious and claimed I was too afraid of risk to ever get ahead. Our parents exchanged worried glances but stayed quiet, probably hoping we'd drop the subject. I simply repeated that my money was already committed. The tension at the table was heavy enough to notice even as other diners laughed around us. The next morning, while browsing listings over coffee, I spotted a rare top-floor condo that fit my plan perfectly: exposed brick, wide windows, and a skyline view I'd only imagined. I scheduled a viewing the same day. The place felt like it had been waiting for me. That discovery made Melissa's proposal even less appealing. Before making any decisions, I reviewed my finances. Years of steady work and disciplined saving meant I could buy the condo and cover the renovation without outside loans. That clarity settled it. I wasn't giving up my dream for something as risky as a lakeside resort built on vague promises. Melissa didn't give up easily. Over the next few days, she left voicemail after voicemail, each one more urgent, predicting I'd wish I listened. I decided to run her numbers past my financial advisor just to be thorough. He didn't even get halfway through before spotting glaring problems: missing permits, inconsistent cost estimates, and questionable revenue projections. He said if I wanted to lose money fast, it was the perfect deal. I also checked county records myself. A few clicks revealed the property was zoned for agriculture, not the luxury cabins Melissa described. That alone would make her plan a nightmare of red tape and probably impossible to build. Armed with that information, I moved forward with the condo. The signing process felt like a victory I'd earned through patience and planning. Meanwhile, Melissa kept pushing. She sent group chat messages full of sarcastic memes about boring sisters and playing it safe. Our parents stayed neutral, replying with polite thumbs-up emojis but offering no commentary. I refused to be drawn into a back and forth. Instead, I focused on renovation plans, choosing fixtures and finishes, and meeting with contractors. I kept all communication with Melissa brief and factual. I wasn't going to debate her on this again. One evening, as I stood in the empty condo space picturing the open layout I'd soon create, I thought about her warning at dinner. She said I'd regret missing this boat, but watching the city lights flicker through those massive windows, I knew the only regret would be hers. 3 months passed in a blur of renovation dust and late-night design plans. My downtown condo project was moving at a steady pace when the first signs of trouble with Melissa's lakeside venture popped up on social media. One afternoon, I opened her page and saw a set of Phase 1 photos she'd just posted. Instead of cabins or even basic framing, the shots showed a few scattered tents pitched on uneven ground, with a single wooden deck half-finished in the background. The captions were full of words like vision and luxury glamping, but all I could see were canvas walls and mud. Not long after, our mother dropped by my condo to see the new custom cabinets being installed. She admired the work, but her eyes kept drifting toward her phone. Eventually, she admitted Melissa had been calling late at night, worried about building permits and inspections. The county hadn't approved any permanent structures yet, and she was nervous about delays. I could tell Mom was trying not to sound alarmed, but the concern showed. A few nights later, my phone buzzed after midnight. Melissa's name lit up the screen. When I answered, her voice came through sharp and shaky. A private lender had backed out after an environmental inspection flagged issues with wetlands on the property. Without that funding, her entire budget collapsed. She jumped straight to asking if I could spare part of my condo budget as a temporary loan, promising I'd get double back once the cabins opened. I explained that I had signed contractor agreements and deposits for my own renovation. Every dollar was already committed. She pressed harder, saying I was letting her drown instead of sharing the reward. I repeated that I couldn't do it. The line went quiet before she hung up. The following weekend, our dad invited both of us to a family brunch, hoping to talk through solutions. We met at a small cafe near the river. Over plates of waffles and coffee refills, I laid out the facts I'd gathered earlier: missing permits, zoning restrictions, and the agricultural classification that still hadn't changed. Melissa brushed it off, saying a friendly local official would smooth things over and that everyone was just jealous of her big plans. Dad looked uneasy but didn't argue. Back in Portland, my condo work carried on. New windows went in, opening the space to the city skyline. I spent long evenings with my contractor finalizing the kitchen layout. Neighbors stopped by to peek at the progress and compliment the exposed brick I'd chosen. Their praise reinforced that I'd made the right decision to focus on my own project. Meanwhile, the news from the lake kept getting worse. 2 minor investors pulled their support after a county notice halted new construction pending a wetlands review. Melissa kept her social media polished, posting heavily filtered sunset shots and captions about exciting developments, but it was clear she was managing an image, not real progress. One evening, Mom called again, her voice low. She suspected Melissa had forged a signature on a zoning application to speed up approvals. She didn't have proof, but the worry was obvious. I decided to send Melissa a careful text urging her to fix any paperwork issues before fines escalated. Her only reply came a few minutes later. One word: jealous? That message sealed it for me. I had done what I could. From that point on, I chose to stay out of her business entirely. My focus returned to the condo, where tile samples and lighting plans demanded attention. The contrast between my steady progress and her unraveling project grew clearer by the week, but I knew Melissa had to face the results of her own choices without my interference. Days turned into weeks as I balanced work at the design firm with late nights measuring trim and selecting finishes. Each delivery brought the condo closer to completion: sleek black fixtures for the bathroom, warm oak flooring that matched the historic building's character, and custom shelving for the living room. Every step reminded me why I had guarded my savings so carefully. Occasionally, I'd hear snippets about the lake project through our parents. County inspectors kept issuing warnings for unauthorized clearing of trees near the shoreline. Vendors demanded payment upfront after hearing about delayed permits. Mom and Dad tried to stay supportive without sinking more money into the venture. Dad even hinted they were considering a financial planner to protect their retirement savings from any sudden emergencies. Melissa, on the other hand, kept doubling down online. She posted drone shots of the lake at sunset, carefully cropping out the empty plots where cabins were supposed to rise. Her captions spoke of upcoming milestones, but no real construction appeared. Friends who followed her updates started asking me privately what was actually happening. I kept my answers short, saying I didn't have details. One weekend, I hosted a small open house to show friends and coworkers the nearly finished condo. The exposed brick glowed in the afternoon sun, and the new kitchen drew compliments from everyone who walked in. While guests admired the view, my phone buzzed with another notification from Melissa's page, a photo of a single picnic table set near the water with a caption about Phase 1 completion. The timing felt almost pointed. By the end of the month, I'd set clear boundaries with our parents as well. I told them I wouldn't discuss financial help for Melissa, and that I couldn't be a backup plan for her debts. They seemed to understand, even if it pained them to watch her struggle. Our family group chat stayed mostly silent, except for updates about everyday things, like holiday recipes or neighborhood news. Looking back at that stretch of months, the differences between our paths stood out more sharply than ever. My condo was taking shape just as I envisioned, while Melissa's dream teetered on the edge of collapse. I didn't celebrate her problems, but I also couldn't rescue her. The choices were hers, and the consequences would be too. 6 weeks after the brunch meeting, news from Lake Raven took a sharp turn. Early one morning, my phone lit up with a county alert. A stop work order and heavy fines had been issued for clearing protected trees on the property Melissa was trying to develop. Inspectors had documented unauthorized grading and tree removal across several acres. The order shut down any further work until a full environmental review could be completed. By that evening, the story jumped from county paperwork to local television. A reporter stood near the lake with a camera crew, pointing toward a handful of canvas tents flapping in the wind. The headline running across the screen read, "Illegal luxury glamping near Lake Raven." The segment included drone footage of the half-cleared land and a quick shot of Melissa's social media posts promising eco-luxury cabins. I didn't need to read the comments to know the coverage was spreading fast. Within days, couples who had booked weddings and events at her site flooded her inbox demanding refunds. Vendors who had agreed to supply tents, tables, and catering began refusing deliveries unless they were paid up front. Melissa's reserves were thin to start with, and each cancellation drained what little she had left. Our parents called me late one night, voices tight with worry. They wanted me to co-sign a small business loan so Melissa could stabilize the project and pay off immediate fines. I explained that co-signing would make me legally responsible if she defaulted, which seemed almost certain given the violations and negative press. They understood but sounded defeated. Meanwhile, online backlash gathered speed. Former clients posted one-star reviews accusing her of misrepresentation and unsafe conditions. Screenshots of the TV segment circulated widely. Every time I opened my phone, there was another message from someone asking if the stories were true. One rainy afternoon, Melissa showed up at my condo without warning. Her face was streaked with tears, and she carried a thick folder of bills and notices. She asked for a $40,000 bridge loan to cover fines and keep the vendors from walking away. I offered her contacts for legal aid and small business counseling, but made it clear I couldn't give her money. She stiffened, accused me of rooting for her downfall, and walked out before I could say more. A few days later, I received an unexpected envelope from the county. Inside was a subpoena requesting my appearance as part of an investigation. Confused, I called the listed office and learned that Melissa had listed me as an informal consultant on a permit application without my consent. The county wanted to verify my involvement. I hired an attorney the same day. He reviewed every message, email, and contract connected to my condo project to prove I had nothing to do with the lakeside venture. After a week of back and forth, the county removed my name from their files and confirmed I was clear of any liability. The relief was immediate, but the shock lingered. Our parents confronted Melissa soon after. Mom later told me the discussion turned into a heated argument when they asked about the forged signature and unauthorized listing of my name. Melissa denied some details but couldn't explain the paperwork. Dad finally insisted she face the consequences on her own. While all of that played out, my own renovation reached its final stage. Contractors installed the last pieces of hardware, and the condo's open layout came to life exactly as I'd envisioned. A regional lifestyle magazine that had followed the project sent a photographer to capture the finished space. The feature highlighted the mix of historic character and modern design, complete with wide shots of the skyline through my new windows. Friends and neighbors shared the article across social media, congratulating me on the design work. At the same time, Melissa's business page quietly disappeared. Her event company name returned an error when anyone tried to search for it. The contrast between our paths couldn't have been sharper, my careful planning paying off while her risky venture collapsed under legal trouble and mounting debt. Family gatherings grew quieter. Melissa skipped birthdays and weekend dinners, avoiding any setting where she might face questions. The sister who once warned I'd regret not taking her advice now stayed out of sight, leaving behind unanswered calls and a trail of creditors. I kept my attention on new design contracts and the calm of a home built exactly the way I planned, aware that the real regret had never been mine to carry. The fallout from the lake project kept building like a storm no one could stop. A new notice arrived at Melissa's mailbox, warning that late fees and interest on her county fines had doubled. The penalties now stretched into a figure that would scare anyone, with a deadline that left no room to stall. The county made it clear that missed payments would bring harsher action. Not long after, the landowner who originally leased the lakeside property served Melissa with a formal eviction notice. The contract had strict clauses about environmental compliance and timely payments, both of which she had broken. The letter gave her 30 days to remove everything from the site: tents, equipment, and whatever remained of the so-called glamping resort. Melissa tried one more angle to stay afloat. She reached out to a former investor, hoping to renegotiate funding, but the investor reviewed the county violations and declined. Without outside backing, her options shrank to nothing. Around the same time, our parents faced their own shock. They had quietly dipped into their retirement savings to cover a minimum county penalty, thinking it might buy her some breathing room. Their financial advisor discovered the withdrawal and called to warn them how dangerous that move was for their future. They felt caught between wanting to help and fearing their own stability was at risk. While all of this churned in the background, I finally finished the condo and planned a private housewarming for close friends and a few colleagues. After months of work, it felt good to welcome people into a space that matched every plan I'd drawn. The evening buzzed with conversation and the smell of fresh paint and warm food. Halfway through the night, the doorbell rang again. When I opened it, Melissa stood there, hair messy, clothes wrinkled, eyes darting around the hallway. She had not been invited. Guests turned to look as she stepped inside without waiting, her voice rising as she accused me of hoarding family support and celebrating while she suffered. The room went silent except for the clatter of a dropped glass. I guided her outside before the scene could grow worse. The air was cool and sharp, and I kept my words steady as I told her the party wasn't the place for this. She pulled her arm free and walked off down the sidewalk, shoulders tight, refusing a ride or a calm conversation. A neighbor across the hall had quietly recorded part of the incident and later offered to share the video if legal issues ever came up. A few days later, new trouble hit. The city suspended Melissa's event planning license after receiving complaints about suspected fraudulent contracts tied to the lake venture. That suspension meant she couldn't book even small parties or weddings, cutting off the last trickle of income she had left. Vendors who had been chasing overdue payments decided to join forces. Several filed a joint claim demanding full repayment and threatening civil action if she missed another deadline. Legal letters arrived one after another, each with official seals and escalating demands. Our parents, alarmed by the pace of everything, called a family meeting at their house. Dad insisted on a complete accounting of Melissa's debts and obligations. Papers piled across the dining table as Melissa listed fines, vendor invoices, and legal fees. During the discussion, it came out that she had secretly used their credit line to keep her business afloat, signing small withdrawals over several months without telling them. The discovery left them stunned. I advised them to separate finances immediately, close shared accounts, and protect what remained of their savings. I made it clear I would not cover any of the debt or sign anything tied to her business. They listened, still processing the revelation of the hidden borrowing. Melissa reacted with defiance. She pushed back from the table, saying she would fix everything herself and didn't need anyone's judgment. Her voice carried through the house as she insisted she had a plan, though no details followed. Then she grabbed her bag and left, the door shutting hard behind her. The quiet that followed felt heavy. The sound of the latch echoed as our parents stared at the scattered papers, the full weight of her financial mess finally visible. Outside, a car engine turned over and faded into the night, leaving only the hum of the refrigerator and the realization that Melissa's situation had moved far past quick fixes or friendly help. A formal envelope arrived at my parents' house with the county seal across the front. Inside was a summons, giving Melissa a hearing date for environmental damage and unauthorized construction at Lake Raven. The papers detailed every violation: clearing protected trees, grading without permits, and ignoring multiple stop work orders. The court date was set for early the next month. Melissa started searching for legal help right away, but each attorney she contacted backed out after reviewing the forged paperwork and the mountain of fines. Some refused politely, others flat out said the evidence was too serious to fight. Days slipped by without her finding anyone willing to represent her. Our parents, worried about what might come next, met with a financial planner at my suggestion. The planner helped them separate accounts, freeze their credit line, and create safeguards so none of Melissa's debts could reach their retirement savings. It was a tense meeting, but at least it gave them a plan. County officials moved quickly too. A notice arrived warning that equipment and the remaining tents on the lakeside property would be seized to offset unpaid fines. They gave a short deadline to remove anything personal before county trucks arrived. Neighbors reported seeing inspectors measuring and photographing the site in preparation. Two former investors who had given Melissa seed money decided to file their own lawsuits for misrepresentation and breach of contract. The claims added more pressure, stacking legal fees on top of the county case. Each letter from their attorneys arrived by certified mail, another reminder that the situation was no longer just a family problem. A week before the hearing, Mom called me late at night. She asked if I would attend the court date for quiet support. I agreed to sit in the audience but said I would only speak if the judge required testimony. She seemed relieved just to know I would be there. On the morning of the hearing, the courthouse hallway buzzed with people waiting for their cases. When our turn came, the county's attorney presented photographs of the damaged wetlands and paperwork showing forged signatures, including the one Melissa had once used my name on. The evidence was detailed and impossible to dispute. The judge listened, then delivered a sharp rebuke. He condemned Melissa for willful disregard of zoning laws and ordered heavy fines plus 6 months of probation with mandatory community service focused on environmental restoration. His words were firm and final, leaving no room for argument. Several of Melissa's former clients sat in the back of the courtroom. They watched as she left pale and silent, avoiding their eyes. Reporters from a local news station filmed short clips for an evening broadcast. Soon after, an order arrived for a forced auction of her business equipment. The tents, furniture, and event supplies would be sold to start restitution payments. County officials posted the auction date online, along with a brief notice that her company's license had been suspended. Local media picked up the story the next day. A short article reported the closure of her event company, citing environmental violations and court-ordered fines. It ran on the city news site under a headline about illegal glamping, echoing the earlier television segment. That weekend, our family gathered for a quiet dinner. Dad laid out the final steps he and Mom had taken, closing all joint accounts and removing Melissa as an authorized user on their credit cards. They were calm but firm, determined to protect what remained of their savings. Melissa stayed silent through most of the meal, staring at her plate. While all this unfolded, my own career moved forward. The magazine feature on my condo reached a regional developer who offered me a high-profile interior design contract for a boutique hotel renovation. The timing felt unreal, one sister's business ending while another project of mine began. As I left that evening, I thought about the night months ago when Melissa warned that I would regret ignoring her big idea. Now she avoided public gatherings entirely, while I prepared for new work and a stable future. The contrast was clear without a single word spoken. The county wasted no time reclaiming the Lake Raven property. Crews arrived with flatbeds to haul away the scattered tents and unfinished decking that remained from Melissa's failed project. By the end of the week, the landowner officially repossessed the site and posted a notice at the entrance stating that all agreements with Melissa's company were terminated. The open ground looked bare and quiet, as if the plan for luxury cabins had never existed. Soon after, debt collectors began calling Melissa at all hours. Letters arrived daily, each one listing unpaid vendor invoices and county fines. Some notices carried bold red stamps demanding immediate payment. The total climbed with every late fee and interest charge. There was no pause between calls from collection agencies and certified envelopes from law firms. Melissa tried to move forward by applying for event management jobs around the city, hoping to use her years of experience. Every application came back with a rejection. Background checks flagged her probation and the lawsuits from former investors. Even smaller venues and seasonal gigs turned her away once they saw the court records. Our parents shifted focus to their own recovery. They met with their financial planner again and cut personal spending to rebuild the savings that had been drained by Melissa's secret borrowing. Restaurant meals disappeared from their budget. Weekend trips stopped. They treated every expense like a decision that required a meeting. Meanwhile, my condo feature appeared in a well-known regional design magazine. The article included wide shots of the brick walls and skyline view, and it brought a steady stream of new client inquiries. I started scheduling consultations with people who had seen the spread and wanted a similar style in their own homes. An unexpected career opportunity followed. An old college friend who owned a small but growing design firm called to offer a partnership in a new boutique interior studio. We met for coffee, reviewed numbers, and quickly realized we had the same vision. Within days, we agreed to launch the studio together. Around that time, Melissa reached out. She asked me to recommend her as an assistant for the new studio, saying she needed steady work and could handle scheduling and event coordination. I explained that the position required spotless references and that ongoing legal issues would block her application. I offered to share job listings outside of our firm, but she refused to consider them. The conversation ended with her accusing me of wanting to see her starve before she hung up. A week later, our mother hosted a small family dinner hoping to ease tensions. The table was set with the usual comfort food, but the evening never found its rhythm. Melissa arrived late, sat through a short meal with minimal conversation, and left before dessert. The silence she left behind said more than any argument. I kept my distance after that. My days filled with design meetings and planning sessions for the new studio, and I avoided getting pulled into more family drama. If Melissa texted, I responded with brief, polite messages about neutral topics. The court finalized a structured repayment plan for her fines and debts. A set percentage of any wages she earned would be garnished automatically until the balance was cleared. The schedule stretched over several years, a constant reminder of the choices that brought her there. Word of her history continued to circulate among local vendors. They quietly shared warnings whenever her name appeared on a new application. Even when she applied for unrelated administrative work, the reputation followed, and offers remained scarce. While that played out, my friend and I signed the lease for our new design studio. We sketched plans for an upscale opening, arranging a launch event to showcase sample rooms and the magazine feature that had drawn so much attention. Contractors prepared the space, and clients scheduled appointments before the paint had even dried. Through all of this, one conclusion settled in. My only regret was that Melissa refused help when it might have mattered, back when simple honesty and careful planning could have kept her from sinking. The path forward for me was clear. Focus on the studio, maintain the boundaries I'd set, and let the results of our different choices speak louder than anything else. The new year opened with cold rain across Portland and a fresh calendar on my wall. Melissa continued the court-ordered wage garnishment plan that had been set months earlier. Every payday, a set percentage of her check went straight to the county and creditors. Collection calls still came, but less often now that the repayment schedule was in place. She spent her mornings dropping off applications around town, trying to keep steady work while the debt slowly ticked down. My own days were packed. The design studio I launched with my college friend was booking a steady stream of projects. A local restaurant hired us to redesign their dining space. A developer asked for proposals on a boutique apartment lobby. Word of mouth spread from the magazine feature, and commercial developers began reaching out for meetings. We kept a waiting list for new clients before our first anniversary. One chilly morning, I stopped at a downtown coffee shop between site visits. As I waited for my drink, a familiar voice said my name. I turned to find Melissa standing a few feet away, a folder of job applications tucked under her arm. She looked tired but composed, hair pulled back neatly, eyes calmer than I remembered. We exchanged a polite hello. The tension that once charged every meeting wasn't there. She mentioned she was dropping off applications and paused before quietly admitting she had misjudged the lakeside venture and that ignoring regulations had been the worst decision of her life. Her voice carried none of the bravado that used to fill every conversation. I listened and told her I hoped the lessons guided her next steps, making no promises beyond that. She nodded, and we parted with a simple goodbye. Weeks later, our parents hosted a modest backyard dinner for their 35th wedding anniversary. They invited only close family, keeping the evening relaxed with strings of lights and a simple buffet. Melissa arrived carrying a framed family photograph from years ago, the four of us smiling on a long-ago vacation. She handed it to Mom, who placed it near the dessert table where everyone could see. After dinner, as relatives drifted inside for coffee, Melissa stepped over and quietly apologized to me. She acknowledged the forged paperwork and the accusations that once dragged me into legal trouble. I thanked her for the apology and told her rebuilding trust would depend on consistent actions over time. We left it at that. Not long after, she secured a junior coordinator position at a reputable hotel chain. It wasn't glamorous, but it offered regular hours and benefits. The paycheck was enough to meet her repayment plan, and the court soon confirmed she had met every milestone for 3 straight months, slightly lowering her total balance. The studio kept growing. We signed a design contract with a boutique hotel, a project that promised regional recognition and long-term security. Our team expanded to handle the workload, and we began planning a showroom to display our portfolio to new clients. By spring, family gatherings felt different. We met for brunch at our parents' house, the first time in years that conversation flowed easily from start to finish. Melissa joined in without defensiveness, sharing small stories from her new job and asking about upcoming design projects. No sharp remarks, no tension, just a quiet rhythm that surprised everyone. As we cleared the dishes, I thought about the warning Melissa once gave me at that anniversary dinner long ago, that I'd regret not taking her advice. The circle had closed. I never needed to prove anything. We had each taken our own path and faced the results. Now both of us moved forward separately, carrying the lessons we had earned, the noise of the past finally quiet.